My wife hired a male tutor. My wife hired a male tutor for our daughter. But our daughter's grades plummeted. I asked to change the tutor, but my wife refused stubbornly. One day, I scolded my daughter for not studying hard. But my daughter was crying as she confided in me. Every time teacher Jason assigns me homework, he goes to give mom a massage. Mom's voice annoys me so much that I can't concentrate on my homework. My daughter's words made my spine stiffen and my palms sweat. Luna, did you say teacher Jason gave mom a massage? Swallowed hard, trying to confirm with his daughter again. The daughter nodded repeatedly, her eyes still showing grievance. Where did they give the massage? Did you see it? The daughter shook her head. They massage right in your bedroom, and every time they lock the door. I never saw it. The daughter's chubby face puffed up even more. I took a deep breath, suppressing my emotions. I can't fully believe everything my daughter says. After all, she's only 8 years old now, and she used to tell little lies. But just thinking about my wife not wanting to change the tutor makes me have to doubt again. By the way, Dad, just pretend you don't know. My daughter tugged at the corner of my clothes and started acting coquettishly. I frowned, looking at her in confusion. Why? Because Mom told me not to say, or else she would hit me. Dad, can you keep this a secret for me? I nodded and promised my daughter. At that moment, the doorbell rang and my daughter hurried to the door. Dad, I'll go answer the door. It should be teacher Jason. As soon as I opened the door, it was indeed teacher Jason, my daughter's tutor. He was momentarily stunned when he saw me, but quickly regained his composure. Hello, Mr. Felix. I'm here to tutor Luna. Due to my work, I need to travel frequently throughout the year. I have only seen teacher Jason once, just a fleeting glance. Today, I took a careful look at him. His lips are red, his teeth white, and his figure upright. He really does look like a young man who could make a wife's heart flutter. Jason, do I look good in this outfit today? My wife hadn't arrived yet, but her voice had already drifted into my ears. A few seconds later, my wife appeared at the door wearing a lace dress. Teacher Jason immediately cleared his throat. Mrs. Vivian, as long as Mr. Felix thinks it looks good, that's all that matters. You don't need to ask for my opinion. I took Luna to the study. In an instant, he distanced himself from his wife. My sudden appearance left my wife completely shocked. Honey, why did you come back all of a sudden? I finished things ahead of time, so I came back. Vivian, are you very close with teacher Jason? My wife's eyes flickered, and she bit her lip tightly. Honey, don't misunderstand. I see teacher Jason as a little brother. You know, my younger brother passed away in an accident when we were kids. Whenever I see teacher Jason, I think of my younger brother. As she spoke, tears welled up in my wife's eyes. I nodded, not asking any further. Honey, I'm going to wash my face. My makeup is all smudged from crying. My wife quickly walked into the bathroom, pausing briefly at the study door. I returned to the bedroom, searching for any clues. My wife had some adult toys hidden in her wardrobe. There were also brand new men's underwear, but not in my size. At that moment, I was sure of what my daughter said. It's just that they weren't giving a massage, but doing something more exciting. The reason my wife was unwilling to change the tutor was found. Vivian is 35 years old this year, 3 years younger than me. We have been married for 9 years and have a daughter. Our marriage can be considered happy and fulfilling. Over the years, my career has advanced rapidly, and I have become part of the company's leadership. In terms of income, we can be considered middle class. But at the same time, I had more social engagements and needed to travel for work more often. I spent less time at home with my daughter and wife. Financially, I was never stingy with my wife. I would buy whatever she wanted. Last year on her birthday, I gave her a car worth over $600,000. Since we had a daughter, my wife hasn't really been dressing up much. She has devoted all her energy to our daughter. But just last year, my wife suddenly changed. She started buying all kinds of designer bags and clothes. Her style of dressing is completely different from before. She used to wear sneakers, but now she wears only high heels. The collars of her clothes are getting lower, and her skirts are getting shorter. The makeup on her face is also getting heavier. When it comes to activities between husband and wife, my wife is becoming more and more indifferent. She often makes excuses to refuse me, saying she needs to sleep with our daughter. Once when I came back from a business trip, there were red scratch marks on her neck. She told me it was caused by an allergy, and I even suggested she see a doctor. Looking back now, I realize how utterly foolish I was. My wife had long been fed by someone else, yet I was completely unaware. I quietly walked out of the bedroom without showing any emotion. At that moment, my wife also came out of the bathroom. "Honey, are you feeling unwell? Why does your face look so pale?" In my wife's eyes was a look of concern, and she even reached out to touch my forehead. She really looked like the perfect wife and mother. Clenching my fists tightly, I held it in. "I'm fine. Maybe just a little tired." "Then why don't you go back to the bedroom and rest for a while?" Just the thought of my wife and that teacher Jason on the bed in the bedroom. My stomach immediately churned violently, and I couldn't help but feel like vomiting. I shook my hand. "No need, I'll just rest on the sofa for a while." At this moment, my heart was still turbulent like raging waves. My heart was being torn apart by steel wires, shattered into pieces. My wife is having an affair, and her lover is tutoring our daughter. If I confront them now, they definitely won't admit it. Because I have no evidence, everything is just my baseless suspicion. What's more important is that our daughter is still at home. I can't let my daughter see all this. It would leave a psychological shadow on her. "Honey, I'll cut some fruit for our daughter and teacher Jason." Ma'am. I responded softly, closed my eyes, and rubbed my temples. My wife entered the study holding some fruit. The door was open, and the sounds inside could be heard clearly. "Teacher Jason, thank you for your hard work. Luna must be difficult to teach, right?" "Mrs. Vivian, it's my duty. Luna is actually quite smart." From their conversation, there was nothing unusual to be heard. Maybe they said it on purpose for me to hear. "Mom, can you not let teacher Jason give you a massage today?" Immediately, my wife covered our daughter's mouth, then glanced at me in the living room. I pretended to close my eyes and fall asleep. "Luna, don't talk nonsense." "Mom, I know I was wrong." Soon, my wife came out of the study. She softly called to me, "Honey, are you asleep?" I didn't respond to her and heard her let out a big sigh. Just as teacher Jason was about to leave, I opened my eyes. "Teacher Jason, please stay and have dinner with us." I took the initiative to invite my wife's lover to have dinner together. "No need, Mr. Felix, I still have things to do." A trace of surprise appeared on Mr. Jason's face. "Mr. Jason, are you going on a date with your girlfriend?" I looked at Mr. Jason with interest. Glancing at my wife, her expression grew tense. "Well, Mr. Felix, my girlfriend and I have arranged to have dinner at a restaurant." "That's perfect. My family hasn't been to a restaurant in a long time." "Teacher Jason, the restaurants you young people go to should be pretty good. We'll go with you, driving you there. Don't worry, we won't be a third wheel." Grinning, I forced a smile that didn't reach my eyes. I want to see if he really has a girlfriend or if it's just a lie. Jason's face showed difficulty. He glanced at his wife, sending a signal for help. "Honey, isn't it nice for us to eat at home? Why bother Jason and the others? Just changing the flavor once in a while." My wife saw that I was so stubborn in my opinion, so she didn't say anything more. "Then Mr. Felix, I'll make a call first." I nodded and saw teacher Jason take his phone and walk out. He was probably making a call to cover up a lie. I drove the car and took them all to the restaurant. Teacher Jason, sitting in the back seat, kept sending messages on his phone. My wife in the front passenger seat also had her phone flashing from time to time. They really don't try to hide it from me. After arriving at the restaurant, teacher Jason was the first to say goodbye to us. "Mr. Felix, Mrs. Vivian, my girlfriend is waiting for me over there." After saying that, he walked in the direction he pointed to. There was indeed a girl sitting over there. Seeing that the seat next to them was empty, I took the initiative to walk towards that vacant spot. As soon as I sat down, someone called out to me, "Felix, what a coincidence, you're here to eat too?" It was only then that I noticed my subordinate Cece sitting opposite teacher Jason. "What a coincidence, is this your boyfriend?" Cece nodded. "Yes, my boyfriend is teacher Jason, but he's about to become my husband." After saying that, a blush appeared on Cece's face. But teacher Jason's expression was awkward, and his wife's face looked even worse. You really can't judge a book by its cover, looking at teacher Jason, so refined and gentle, but in reality, he plays quite wild. At home, he has a young girlfriend. Outside, a mature married woman. "What a coincidence, your boyfriend is my daughter's tutor." I smiled as I looked at Cece, then glanced at teacher Jason. "A tutor?" Cece frowned, a bit confused. "But Jason, weren't you bad at studying before?" "Cece, I'm more than capable of teaching kids. Hurry up and order." Cece nodded and did not continue. I didn't make a fuss anymore, but from this, I learned one thing. My wife must have gotten involved with teacher Jason first. To make things easier, she even hired him as our daughter's tutor. Their whole affair was really a carefully crafted act. "Cece, I just received a last-minute notice. You will go on a business trip with me the day after tomorrow." "Okay, Felix." I withdrew my gaze and looked at the menu. "Honey, are you going on a business trip again?" "Yes, it's urgent. This time it might be for more than a week." My wife nodded, her eyes filled with joy. I had created another opportunity for them. Near the end of dinner, I received a text message. "Bro, the pinhole camera has already been installed in your house." I took a sip of tea and turned off the phone screen. The pinhole camera is just a precaution. The real drama requires catching someone red-handed. My wife personally saw me off at the airport, and teacher Jason also accompanied Cece to the airport. They want to see us leave with their own eyes, so that they can act without restraint. Cece and I checked in, but we did not board the plane. I have already told Cece about teacher Jason and his wife. Cece and I left the airport and went our separate ways. She went to find Jason's parents, and I went to find my father-in-law and mother-in-law. My daughter called me using her phone watch. "Dad, Mom is taking a shower and teacher Jason is coming soon." "Okay, wait until teacher Jason and the others go for a massage, then you sneak down. Grandpa and Grandma are waiting for you downstairs. You will stay at their place for a while." "Okay, Dad, I can finally be free from the torment of noise." My father-in-law and mother-in-law were very surprised by my sudden appearance. They are both retired teachers and very cultured. "Mom, Dad, I'm taking you to meet Vivian and her daughter, to give them a surprise." My father-in-law and mother-in-law got into the car with me without a word. Just as I arrived at the community gate, my parents messaged me saying they had already taken Luna away. But Cece said she couldn't make it. There was an accident on the way. I could only rush into the house with my father-in-law and mother-in-law to catch them red-handed on the spot. As soon as I entered the house, I heard my wife's rapid breathing coming from the bedroom. My father-in-law and mother-in-law immediately furrowed their brows. The bedroom door opened, and my wife came out on her own. "Luna, where are you? Don't play hide and seek with Mommy anymore." "Mom, Dad, husband, why are you here?" My wife looked out of breath, but there was a calmness in her expression. At that moment, teacher Jason came out from the study next door. "Mrs. Vivian, Luna wasn't seen in the study either." There was even a provocative smile at the corner of teacher Jason's mouth. At that moment, I was dazed. Could it be that I was overthinking, and my wife and teacher Jason had nothing going on at all? "Oh, honey, why are you back so soon?" Teacher Jason went to the restroom, and the daughter just disappeared. At this moment, I actually shifted from being proactive to passive. The business trip was suddenly canceled, so I brought my father-in-law and mother-in-law over to see Luna. I set an alarm on my phone and let it ring, pretended to answer the phone, talking to myself. After hanging up, I cleared my throat. Vivian, my parents just saw Luna downstairs and took her out to play. Since Luna isn't here, I'll head back first, Mr. Felix. Teacher Jason left with his head held high. It was just that the lipstick on my wife's lips was smudged, and there were scratch marks on her arm. All of this left my thoughts in turmoil. I sent my father-in-law and mother-in-law home, then sat alone in the car and smoked a cigarette. Suddenly, I remembered that there was a pinhole camera installed at home. I immediately took out my phone and opened the surveillance feed. After coming out of the study, Teacher Jason headed straight to the master bedroom. As soon as he entered, he skillfully locked the bedroom door. His wife kissed Teacher Jason with fierce passion. In a moment, all their clothes were scattered on the floor. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Anger and shame surged up to the top of my head. I opened my eyes and forced myself to keep watching the video. Just as their love was at its peak, Teacher Jason's phone rang. He didn't want to answer at first, but after glancing at the screen, he picked up. After hanging up, he quickly jumped out of bed. Sister Vivian, your husband didn't get on the plane. He went to pick up your parents and bring them home. In an instant, my wife also panicked. How could that be? Who said that? Cece said so. Hurry up and pack. Your husband might know about us, but it's not certain. After watching the surveillance replay, I understood everything. It's not that I'm overthinking. They really are lovers. I still don't understand. Why did Cece do that? I rolled down the car window and slowly lit a cigarette. As I exhaled smoke, the evidence of my wife's affair was already there. So should I keep acting until they receive the punishment they deserve? I picked up my phone and called Cece. Do you have time? Let's go out for a cup of coffee. Felix, I'm sorry. Cece on the other end of the phone was crying. Come out first, then we'll talk. Melodious music was playing in the cafe. Cece sat across from me, her eyes brimming with tears. Why do you have to do that? Teacher Jason was the one who cheated, so why are you helping him? I still don't understand Cece's behavior. Felix, on the way to Teacher Jason's house, I suddenly felt nauseous and wanted to vomit. Frowning, is Cece really the capable subordinate I once knew? Her answer left me completely confused, but I still listened patiently. Suddenly I remembered, I haven't had my period for 2 months. So I went to the pharmacy to get tested, and I am pregnant. Cece's face showed grievance and unease. Jason and I were already going to get married, and now I am carrying his child. So I want to give Jason a chance, as if nothing ever happened. For a moment, I was at a loss for words and took a sip of my coffee. Cece, can you guarantee that Teacher Jason will never cheat in the future? Even if he can cut off contact with my wife, there will still be others. I'm someone who's been cheated on, yet I still start earnestly advising others. No, Felix, once you have a child, you'll settle down. But doesn't my wife have a child too? And our daughter is already 8 years old. Cece clenched her fists, her knuckles turning white, but she remained silent. I respect your choice, but may I ask, what did you say to Teacher Jason? Does he know now that I already know about him and my wife? Cece lifted her eyes, looked at me, and shook her head. Felix, I only told him that the business trip was canceled, and that you would go pick up your father-in-law and mother-in-law at home. I didn't say anything else. I nodded. She wasn't beyond hope after all. So you didn't expose his affair? I haven't decided yet. Maybe I won't expose it after all. I sighed deeply at Cece and withdrew the thought I had just had. You have to decide for yourself. Just make sure you won't regret it in the future. After paying the bill, I left the cafe. As soon as I got home, my wife came up to me on her own. Honey, I want to change our daughter's private tutor. With Teacher Jason, our daughter's grades really haven't improved. My wife's sudden change took me by surprise. But she was probably afraid that if this continued, I would find out about their affair. Whatever you want, as long as you like it. All right, then it's decided. My wife stood on her tiptoes and leaned close to my ear. Honey, we haven't been intimate for a long time. Our daughter is not home today, so we don't have to hold back. I tugged at the corner of my mouth, held back my nausea, and coughed a few times. I still haven't recovered from my cold, so I'll sleep in the guest room. After saying that, I headed straight to the bathroom. I could still feel the burning gaze behind me. My wife seemed to be testing me. I took off my clothes and glanced unintentionally at the trash can. A plastic stick caught my attention. The two bright red lines were so glaring. It turns out my wife is pregnant, which is why she took the initiative to look for a couples show today. Are they trying to count the child she had with teacher Jason as mine? Not only did she cheat on me, but now she wants me to be a cheap dad? Suddenly, my wife started banging frantically on the bathroom door. "Honey, please open the door. I need to come in for a moment." Her tone was full of panic. "Vivian, I'm already taking a shower. Come back later." I turned on the shower, letting the sound of water fill the entire bathroom. I picked up my phone to make 2 calls, then took an incredibly long shower. As soon as I opened the bathroom door, my wife rushed in. "Honey, did you see anything?" I curled my lips. "What am I supposed to see?" My wife shook her head, whispering softly, "It's good if there's nothing. It's good if there's nothing." The doorbell suddenly rang, and I glanced at my wife. "Vivian, you go answer the door, I'll wipe my hair." My wife glanced at the trash can helplessly, then turned and walked toward the front door. "Mom, Dad, why are you here again?" Seeing my father-in-law and mother-in-law at the door, my wife was extremely surprised. "Vivian, why didn't you tell us you were pregnant?" In an instant, my wife's face turned pale, and she was completely panicked. "Mom, what are you talking about?" My wife was trying hard to cover it up. "Father-in-law, mother-in-law, please come in and have a seat first." I took the initiative to walk over and let them sit on the living room sofa. I stood at the door, not leaving, because one more person was going to come. 5 minutes later, teacher Jason indeed appeared, out of breath. "Mr. Felix, I arrived on time." The panic in his eyes was no less than his wife's. "Come in. You can sit on the sofa too." Teacher Jason nodded and staggered over. His wife kept asking him with her eyes, but he was at a loss for words now. I turned on the TV and curled my lips into a smirk. "All right, let's not say anything for now. I'll show you a video." Soon, the TV was filled with my wife's coquettish gasps. The scene in the bedroom today came to mind as well. The expressions of my father-in-law and mother-in-law were like the face-changing art of Sichuan opera. In a matter of seconds, their faces kept shifting colors, red, white, and green. The 2 elders fell silent, their earlier joy completely gone. My stunned wife finally came to her senses and went over to turn off the TV. "Felix, you knew all along?" My wife's lips were trembling, and her hands were shaking as well. I furrowed my brow and counted on my fingers. "Not really, I only found out about 3 days ago. But I just learned about your pregnancy too." Suddenly, my wife went crazy and grabbed my collar. "Why did you have my parents come? Why do you have to embarrass me in front of my family? It's as if I'm the one who did something wrong, as if I'm the one who cheated." When people are speechless, they really do smile. But before I could speak, teacher Jason spoke up first. "Sister Vivian, is the child you're carrying mine?" His eyes still shone with the joy of becoming a father. My wife's eyes flickered as she glanced at me, then at my parents-in-law. I pried her hand open, and she staggered backward slightly. Teacher Jason was quick-eyed and quick-handed, pulling his wife into his arms. "Sister Vivian, be careful." The 2 seemed to have forgotten about us bystanders, their gazes almost melting together. "Jason, the child is yours." My wife's words were like a bolt from the blue to my father-in-law and mother-in-law. My father-in-law was so angry that his hands trembled. He took a quick step forward and pulled my wife out of teacher Jason's arms. Then he swung his hand and slapped my wife hard. It was clear he put a lot of force into it. 5 finger marks immediately appeared on my wife's fair cheek. "How could I have given birth to such a shameless daughter like you?" This was the first time I saw my father-in-law so furious. Instantly, tears welled up and streamed down my wife's face. Uncle, I will take responsibility for Sister Vivian and the child in my belly. Teacher Jason actually stepped forward. He sounds like a responsible person. Teacher Jason, do you really want to be a dad? I looked at Mr. Jason with interest. Yes, I've always wanted to be a good father. I reached out and applauded, then nodded again. Very responsible, but you have to give the child a proper status, right? To have that status, you have to marry Vivian. In an instant, Teacher Jason's face changed color. Why don't you want to marry her? Was it just a fleeting fancy with her? You don't even want the child? I deliberately provoked Teacher Jason, forcing him to make a choice. At this moment, my wife's gaze also focused on Teacher Jason. Waiting for his reply, he bit his lip, seemingly engaged in a fierce internal struggle. After a long time, he finally spoke. All right, I'll marry Sister Vivian. His wife immediately blossomed with joy, her face beaming with a smile. If you want to marry her, you have to get a divorce from me first. I hadn't finished speaking when my wife interrupted me. Felix, I'm divorcing you right now. My father-in-law and mother-in-law stood by, looking deeply disappointed. Fine, then the custody of our daughter will be mine. I stared intently at my wife. Without a trace of hesitation, she said, I never wanted that burden in the first place. Jason and I both have our own babies now, so why would we need her? My wife truly cast aside all the love she once had for our daughter. Well, if she can mess around with Teacher Jason at home, what else can't she do? And you walk away with nothing, no objections? I arched my brows slightly, playing with the lighter in my hand. As soon as money is mentioned, my wife gets anxious. Why should I leave empty-handed? I've given so much to this family over the years. Half of the property each. I don't even know how she managed to say that. Vivian, how do you still have the nerve to ask for property? It was the father-in-law speaking, and he was so angry that his blood pressure skyrocketed. Fail Young, get a lawyer, draft an agreement to divorce her, and make her leave empty-handed. Today, I am in charge here. I nodded and called my lawyer friend. My wife and Teacher Jason sat in the corner, leaning against each other. Sister Vivian, it's okay. I can support you and the baby. Jason, won't that be very hard for you? Not hard at all. It's all worth it for you. They were whispering sweet nothings to each other nearby, while the father and mother-in-law were so angry they nearly fainted. The agreement was drafted quickly, and after I signed it, my wife also signed. Please draft a property donation certificate for me as well. My father-in-law called out to my lawyer friend. I am donating all the property under my name to Felix without compensation. Not only Vivian, but even I was stunned, my eyes wide open in shock. Dad, are you crazy? I'm your daughter, so why are you giving the money to him? This money is mine, and I can give it to whoever I want. Mom, please try to persuade Dad. He must be out of his mind. Vivian ran over to her mother-in-law again, shaking her shoulders. It's not your dad who's out of his mind. It's you who are crazy. And your illness can't be cured anymore. A perfectly good family, and you insist on tearing it apart. One day you'll be the one crying. Where else are you going to find a man like Fail Young? The mother-in-law lifted her head and no longer looked at Vivian. Actually, my father-in-law's fortune isn't really meant for me, but for his daughter Luna. They gave us a granddaughter. After everything was settled, Vivian and I went to the Civil Affairs Bureau. We just got the divorce certificate, but we have to wait for a month. I sent today's home surveillance video to Cece. As for how she decides, that's her own business. While at work, Cece came to the office to see me. She took nearly a month off. Felix, I watched the video. Cece lowered her head, her eyes red. I put down the pen in my hand and looked up at her. What are you planning to do? Still marry him? Cece shook her head. Felix, I won't marry him. She was still somewhat rational. So, what do you plan to do about the child in your belly? I will have it taken away. Does Teacher Jason know that you are pregnant? After a long silence, Cece finally spoke. I haven't said it yet, but he has children with your wife and wouldn't care about the child in my womb. Fingers tapped back and forth on the table a few times. Cece, later Vivian and I will go to get the divorce certificate, and teacher Jason will probably go too. Do you want to come with me? I think you still need to tell him about the pregnancy. All right, Felix, I'll go with you. Actually, I have a selfish reason for taking Cece to the scene. I want to see how teacher Jason will choose between the two children. On the way to the Civil Affairs Bureau, Cece felt a bit uneasy. Haven't you been in contact with teacher Jason recently? I sent a few messages, and he only told me that he has been very busy lately. I nodded, busy taking care of his sister Vivian. Cece did not get off the car with me. She only came out after I got the divorce certificate. Her appearance surprised both teacher Jason and Vivian. Cece, what are you doing here? It was obvious to the naked eye that teacher Jason was flustered. He immediately let go of Vivian. Teacher Jason, stop hiding. I know everything about you and Felix's ex-wife. Teacher Jason frowned, both surprised and confused. Then what is the purpose of your visit today? At this moment, Vivian suddenly looked at me with a face full of disdain. Felix, could it be that you are together with her? Her imagination is truly vast, and her creativity is genuinely rich. Her own behavior is disgraceful, and she maliciously slanders others. Vivian, watch your words for the sake of the child in your womb. You might not even be able to afford your child's milk powder in the future. I smiled with the corner of my mouth and glanced over at them again. Felix, what do you mean? Literally, you'll find out very soon. What exactly did you do, Felix? Vivian lunged at me in a fury, but she stumbled and fell to the ground. In an instant, red liquid flowed from her thigh. I clicked my tongue twice. Most likely, the child can't be saved. Teacher Jason looked panicked, and Cece was also stunned in place. Teacher Jason, there's something you don't know yet, right? Cece is pregnant, carrying your child. It's okay if Vivian's baby doesn't survive today. You still have a child. The way I speak now is sharp and bitter. Even I dislike myself. Cece's face flushed red, her knuckles turning white. She must have realized that I took advantage of her today. Cece, is it true? Yes, what Felix said is true. I walked over to Cece's side and leaned close to her ear. Lowering my voice, I said, let's put off talking about getting rid of the baby for now. Teacher Jason really wants to be a father. If Vivian's child can't be saved, he will definitely come to find you. At that time, you can sow discord between them. After causing the rift, it won't be too late to talk about the child. Cece stared at me in disbelief, but in the end, she nodded. Hurry and take him to the hospital or someone might die. After hearing my words, teacher Jason and Vivian finally came to their senses. Cece and I also went to the hospital together. Although Vivian and I are divorced, she will always be our daughter's mother. It's just that I wasn't that kind-hearted. I purely went there to watch the drama unfold. And, incidentally, to pour oil on the fire. Vivian's child was indeed lost. She lay on the hospital bed, tears streaming down her face. She looked at me with eyes full of resentment. Felix, you are the one who killed the baby of Jason and me. You murderer. The corner of my mouth twitched. Vivian really speaks without thinking. Vivian, you need to speak with evidence. If you slander me again, I will sue you. Teacher Jason, standing by the bed, lowered his head in silence. He must be saddened by losing the qualification to be a father. Felix, get out of here. And you, Cece, get out too. Jason won't see you anymore. Without the child, Vivian seemed to lose her sense of security. I gently nudged Cece with my elbow. She and I exchanged a glance, then she strode over to teacher Jason. Jason, if you break up with her, I'll pretend nothing ever happened. Cece lifted teacher Jason's hand and placed it on her lower abdomen. We will grow up together with the baby. Teacher Jason, who had just been downcast, immediately brightened up. Cece, are you telling the truth? Yes, as long as you never have any contact with her again. All right, Cece, I promise I won't associate with her anymore. Teacher Jason turned around and looked at Vivian lying on the hospital bed. Vivian, let's never see each other again. Don't come looking for me anymore. Teacher Jason, what are you talking about? Are you crazy? I just had a miscarriage because of you. Vivian sat up from the hospital bed with a whoosh. Indeed, human potential is limitless. You fell down by yourself. It has nothing to do with me. Teacher Jason's change of expression was also very quick. Have you been deceiving me all this past year? Do you only like my body? I swallowed hard. There really was nothing Vivian was afraid to say. After so many years of marriage, I still never truly saw her clearly. Teacher Jason suddenly let out a cold laugh. Vivian, please, who exactly is attracted to whose body? You were the one who seduced me first. You said you liked younger ones and complained that your husband wasn't good enough. Clenching my fists, this boomerang has hit me back. And who was it that bought those toys? You always come up with new ways to play with me, playing thrilling games. I was temporarily seduced by you, and also because I saw you were willing to spend money. Now that you have nothing left, do you think I would still be with you? The unspeakable secrets between the two of them were all revealed one by one. Cece, let's go. Don't pay any more attention to that old woman. Teacher Jason pulled Cece and headed out of the ward. When he reached in front of me, Teacher Jason stopped. Every time she is with me, she says you are a good-for-nothing. Watching Teacher Jason's departing back, I was left speechless. Honey, I was wrong. It was me who didn't know what's good for me. Let's start over. We are still a happy family of 3. With a stiff face, Vivian always manages to give me a scare. Vivian, we are already divorced. I am not your husband. A worthless person like me doesn't deserve you. You should seriously think about your future financial support. Felix, you bastard. She picked up the pillow and threw it at me, but I dodged to the side. Then I left the ward with a smile. Cece took a few days off sick before coming back to work. Felix, the baby has been taken away. I also came clean with Teacher Jason. At that time, all their relatives were there, and I played that video in public. I nodded. Cece was learning quite fast. His father beat him half to death, saying he had disgraced the show family's reputation. He originally thought he could become a father, but now he's lost on both fronts. I also heard that he lost his job and is being boycotted by the industry. Cece frowned slightly, looking at me with some confusion. Felix, this can't be your doing, can it? Waved my hand. I'm not that capable. Oh, I see. The matter with Teacher Jason was indeed handled by me, and it took quite some effort. My daughter suddenly called me. Dad, Mom and I are eating in the restaurant. Mom asked you to come over too. I glanced at my watch. It should be time for school now. With a sudden jolt, I rushed to the restaurant. As soon as she saw me, Vivian's face lit up with a smile. Honey, you're here. She smiled in a chilling way, sending shivers down one's spine. Vivian, what do you want to do? I wanted to hold my daughter, but she blocked me in front. Honey, I just brought our daughter here to eat. I am our daughter's mother. What else could I be? Honey, sit down and eat with us. Dad, please have a seat. My daughter's eyes fluttered, full of innocence. As soon as I sat down, my daughter said she wanted to go to the bathroom. Vivian wanted to follow, but I grabbed her arm. Luna is older now. She can do it by herself. If you have something to say, just say it. Vivian curled her lips into a cold sneer. Either remarry me or give me half of your property. Otherwise, I'll fight you for custody of our daughter. No sooner had I finished speaking than my phone rang. It was my daughter calling. Dad, I know Mom doesn't have good intentions today. Grandpa has already come to pick me up. I'm leaving now, so don't worry about me. A warm current surged through me. My daughter has truly grown up. Just after hanging up the phone, I caught a glimpse of Teacher Jason also appearing in the restaurant. Felix, it's you who caused me to become like this. Today, I will completely destroy you. Vivian curled the corner of her mouth. Felix, if you promise to give me half of your fortune, Jason will let you go today. So, it turned out Vivian and Teacher Jason were mixed up together again. They even conspired to trick me out, wanting my property. Teacher Jason has a bottle of liquid in his hand, colorless, but with a strong smell. He shook the bottle in his hand, revealing a sinister smile. Want to taste the flavor of concentrated sulfuric acid? I clenched my fist. If you want my fortune, try again in the next life. Instantly, Teacher Jason was furious and humiliated. Felix, then you just enjoy yourself. I swiftly flipped the dining table, blocking the way in front of me. I was not splashed with acid. On the contrary, Teacher Jason slipped and fell due to the wet floor. In an instant, a sizzle, sizzle, sizzle sound rang out, along with screams. Vivian was splashed with sulfuric acid, and in his panic, Teacher Jason also spilled the acid on himself. The scene was unbearably tragic. I almost vomited. Vivian was completely disfigured and in unbearable pain. Later, she jumped off a building. Teacher Jason was punished by the law and died suddenly of illness in prison. I try to reduce my working hours and spend more time with my daughter, not missing out on my daughter's growth.